But speaking of fostering confusion, the very radical and extreme and dangerous Libs of TikTok account committed harassment and terrorism once again, this time against a woman yesterday by reposting a video that she posted to TikTok. In the video, this woman, a mother apparently, and tragically, explains what is, in her mind, a developmentally appropriate way to talk about sex and gender with a young child. Listen.
Here's a developmentally appropriate way to talk to toddlers about bodies and gender. You know the body parts that your diaper or your panties or your underwear cover? Those are called privates. Everyone has privates. Private means that they belong to you and only you. In the front, everybody has genitals, but there are different kinds of genitals. Some genitals are called a penis. Some are called a vulva. Others look maybe a little bit like each in some ways, or kind of like neither, or somewhere in between. People with those kind of genitals are called intersex. When babies are born, parents sometimes guess their gender based on their genitals. They tend to guess boy for babies who have a penis and girl for babies who have a vulva. Sometimes parents guess wrong though, and that's okay. Everybody makes mistakes sometimes. People whose parents guessed wrong about their gender are called transgender.
So she says that here's a developmentally appropriate way to talk to toddlers about gender, but she misspoke. What she meant to say is, here's an extremely creepy way to confuse a helpless young child with a bunch of insane bullshit invented by pedophile sexologists in the 1960s. Tomato, tomato, I suppose. I mean, that's what she meant to say. Now, notice how this pink-haired freakazoid starts off right away by introducing intersex to the toddler. Rather than giving the basic, simplest facts to the child, she spends time talking about genetic anomalies that affect like 0.05% of the population. Now, it's true, of course, technically, that a very small minority of people are born with physically ambiguous genitalia. This doesn't mean they don't have a biological sex, but just that determining their sex is a little more difficult in these very, very rare cases. Why would you mention this to a toddler, though? It's like if you were on a plane with your 3-year-old and you leaned over and said, "So Johnny, planes go in the sky. Sometimes they fly all the way through the sky and land safely. Sometimes they crash and everybody dies. Sometimes they blow up in the air. Sometimes they fly into buildings." Now, that would technically be true, but you wouldn't say that to a toddler unless your intention was to traumatize him. Because a child that age doesn't understand statistics or probabilities or the distinction between things that are common and things that are rare. He especially won't understand the distinction when you phrase it in a way that is designed to make it seem like the rare occurrence is just as common as the common occurrence. So you talk to your child about plane crashes that way if you want him to think that planes crash all the time, and you talk to your child about intersex that way, or at all, if you want him to think that intersex is just as common as normal bodies. From here, the psycho with the crazy eyes goes from misleading her child to straight up lying. She says that parents and doctors guess whether a baby is a boy or a girl based on genitalia. As I told you last week, this guess thing is the new talking point. It's the new euphemism. It used to be sex assigned at birth, which was already misleading enough. Now it's sex guessed at birth. And they go with guess instead of assigned because guess sounds even more arbitrary and baseless. And yet they still admit that most of the time, the guess is correct. Well, why would that be the case? Why does it just so happen that parents who guess boy based on a penis are almost always right? Of course, they're not almost always right. They're always right. But, I mean, even based on the demented logic we heard in that clip, according to her, the guess, quote unquote, is almost always right. Why is that? If it's a 50-50 guess, and there are billions of guesses being made across the world, then shouldn't the guess be wrong about 50% of the time? Shouldn't 50% of the world be trans? Because trans, by this way of thinking, is simply the result of a wrong guess. That's all. With so many billions of guesses, how can there be so few wrong guesses? Well, these are the kinds of questions that we as critical thinking, rational adults can ask. These are the holes that we can punch in the nonsense that people like this woman are spewing. But even the smartest toddler in the world isn't going to notice these problems. He doesn't have enough information about the world to think critically about this. He'll just accept whatever he's told. And he will become deeply, profoundly, despairingly confused and lost, and that is all by design. That's the plan by these grooming predator ghouls. And that's why they are, once again, canceled. Listen, hit that subscribe button right now. Do it right now. I thank you for your compliance. It is somewhat appreciated.